If you don't feel comfortable, go ahead and leave the meeting, and we'll make sure to get this information to you individually through one of your college advisors. But if not, go ahead and hang on with us. Again, your cameras will be turned off throughout the entirety of the meeting, as well as your microphone muted. If at any point you have any questions, we have Jasmine monitoring the chat box, and we'll have her answering slides or asking those questions at the end of every slide while us presenting, okay? For those of you that are not ETS students, I did want to let you, as a reminder, that if you are interested in ETS, we are currently recruiting students to join. You can email us. Hopefully you all have already sent your interest form when you signed up for this workshop. If not, the email address is on the screen right now, or you can also go to our website and find the information to contact us. We also have our 2 Instagram accounts. So for those of you that are in the South Bay area, you can follow the ETS Trio ETS CSUOB SB account. For those of you that are part of LA, Linwood, Long Beach, and Compton, our Instagram account is ETS Trio CSUOB. On there, we'll post different college updates and fun stuff that we're doing throughout the summer and throughout the school year. So if you're not an ETS student, but you want to join, you can also contact us that way in order to get an application. For those of you who requested information on joining ETS as of last week, we actually did mail out those application packets today. Keep an eye out for those within the next week or two. And you'll have all the information you need to be able to send back that application and join our program. And then our final reminder, remember that this is a summer program that you all are attending virtually. So you will get credit credit on your college applications for taking the time out of your summer to attend these workshops. For ETS students, you will be able to count this as a program and then you'll get a certificate of completion at the end. If you're not an ETS student currently, but you do join, you can also qualify for that certificate. Remember, you have to attend all 6 workshops. If for whatever reason you have any issues attending one of the workshops, go ahead and contact your ETS advisor and let them know the situation, and we'll see if we can work something out for you, okay? Then for those of you, I know last workshop we did have a few students who were sharing a device, so siblings in the same household. That's awesome. Just go ahead and contact your ETS advisor to let them know that both of you are on. And in addition, everyone right now, if you haven't already, in the chat box, put your first and last name and what school you're joining us from, okay? This is how we're gonna select our opportunity drawing winner, and we'll go ahead and announce that at the end of our workshop today. All right, so without further ado, I'll go ahead and hand the mic over to Paola.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so you can see the PowerPoint, okay? All right, can everyone see the PowerPoint? All right, good. All right, so my name is Paula Gutierrez, and I am a financial aid counselor at CSU Long Beach. I used to work at UC Santa Cruz, so I have some knowledge from both the CSU and the UC system as far as how financial aid is administered at these different institutions. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So I wanted to start off with some common myths or some common misconceptions that I often hear from students. I think that all of us that assist students that are trying to or looking to attend a 4-year institution have these concerns, such as I can't afford college, I'm applying for college, but it's way too expensive, or you associate college with loans and think that that's the only option for paying for school. So we hopefully at the end of this presentation, you have a better idea of how financial aid works and the different types of resources that are available out there for you to fund your education. Okay, so what is financial aid? Financial aid is money that is given to you, the student, and it's there to assist you to pay for your educational expenses. The money can come from different resources. The money can be free, paid, or loaned. So I'll go over the different breakdowns in a moment. And the sources of funding can be from the state, the federal government, your college, and scholarships.
I'm sorry about that. Can we can you actually go full screen? I think the students are not able to see your the slides.
Sure. Let me see. Are you able to see the full screen now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, no problem. Okay, so now let's get started with the different types of financial aid applications that are out there. So depending on the type of institution that you are going to send, you may need to submit the CSS profile, but the two common applications that students will be submitting are FAFSA and the DREAM application. The DREAM application is only for undocumented students. I often get students that think that they need to do the FAFSA and the DREAM application because they're applying for Cal Grant. The DREAM application is not for Cal Grant, it's for undocumented students. So if you do not have an undocumented status, then you should be completing the FAFSA. The priority deadline for these applications is March 2nd. I want to emphasize this date. March 2nd is extremely important, especially for students that are looking to obtain Cal Grant or are going to be attending a state school, that is CSU, for example, CSU Long Beach. Any of the CSUs, March 2nd is extremely important because these schools have limited funding. And so one of the grants that we have is a state university grant. If a student fails to submit their application by March 2nd, oftentimes they end up losing out on that grant. And this is the grant that pays for a lot of students' tuition. So please mark your calendars. The application will always be open on October 1st. The priority deadline is March 2nd. If you happen to miss the March 2nd deadline, don't worry, you can still submit it. You'll still be considered for federal grants, possibly scholarships. But the important thing is that you submit it. Even if you miss the deadline, please submit it as soon as you realize, you need your application to be on file. Okay. The information that is needed to complete your application. You should always have your tax returns, your parents' tax returns. A lot of our first year students don't have a tax return because they were in high school, they didn't work. It's okay, you're gonna report 0 income. If you did happen to work, then you'll report your income. But the tax return information is needed for your parents. We also have students whose parents are not working. They're not receiving some type of income. If your parents are not receiving income, you can still complete the application. That's another concern that students have. Oh, my parents don't work. I have no income to report. That's okay. You report the truth. My parents don't have income. And then if selected for verification, which I'll talk about later on, verification is simply just, hey, we want to verify that the information on your application is accurate to make sure that you have the financial aid package that is best reflective of your situation. Other things that you'll want to have is information on other income. For example, we have families who receive child support. We have families that have what we call untaxed income, and untaxed income could be income from from different benefits, such as unemployment income that is not being taxed. There could be income that your parent, let me give you an example. We have some students whose parents work in another country. So we have students that live in the US and have a parent living, let's say, for example, in Mexico. And the parent in Mexico isn't paying taxes. So you just report that income as untaxed income. The important thing is that you know is that it doesn't matter whether they file taxes in the US or not. It should not be a reason that prevents you from filling out an application. If you have a more more complex situation, then you have your ETS advisors, you have the college, whatever school you're attending. The moment that you decide, I'm going to apply, for example, to CSU Long Beach, you are considered a student for us. And so we are here to assist you with completing the application along the way. And the last thing that you'll want to have available is asset information. So a lot of students will skip that. There's a section in the FAFSA where it'll ask for your parents' savings, investments, net worth of any rental properties. And so if your parents have any of that, if any of this is applicable to them, you'll want to report it on the application. Why? Because if you give us accurate information or the most accurate information, then when we give you your first financial aid offer, that financial aid offer will be accurate. A lot of the times there's some sections that are skipped or we're rushing through it and we get it completed ahead of time. And so we provide estimated information and then you get selected for verification. So we'll say, hey, we got your application, but Department of Education wants us to review it. Then you give us more information, which ends up changing your financial aid offer. Sometimes it could change completely. Sometimes it doesn't change at all because everything is accurate. And if it changes, a lot of the times, if you were counting on money that you no longer have. So the more accurate you provide the information, the more accurate you'll get your initial financial aid offer.
And then Paula, we have a question. Someone asked, does an internship apply as income? So if a student did an internship.
Yes, if you were paid, you should be getting a W-2. Sometimes students will say, oh, well, I was only paid like, $100. If they give you a W-2, you should report it as income. If you were paid cash, so some students were paid are paid as babysitters. If and you don't have a W-2, that's okay. You report it as income, and then you give us a statement that says, hey, I worked. I didn't get a W-2, but I did have income earned, and this is how much I earned, whether it was cash or check. So yeah, if your internship pays you, you should be reporting that. Okay, financial aid terms. So these are 3 important ones that you will want to know because you'll hear them a lot and you'll see them a lot. So this is a good opportunity for you to get familiar with these, comfortable with these, and you know what they mean. So when you start getting your financial aid offers, you start looking into schools or you're ready to go, that you know exactly what you're looking for. The number one thing is the cost of attendance. Every school that you go to is going to have a cost of attendance. We are required to develop a budget for you, and this budget is to help you determine how much will it cost for me to attend the school. That doesn't mean that that's what you're going to be paying out of pocket. It's another scary thing. A lot of the time students look at the cost of attendance and they look at, for example, right here in the off-campus budget, they look at it and they say $24,000, that's a lot of money. I have no idea how I'm gonna pay for this, I can't do it. That's not what this means. So let me break it down for you. The cost of attendance includes different things. It includes the tuition and fees, the room and board, the books and supplies, transportation, and personal expenses. I'm gonna move forward to another slide and then I'm gonna come back. So now I like to refer to certain things as the hard cost, essentially what your bill will be. And then there's extras, okay? So the hard costs are tuition and fees. And if you're going to be living on campus, your room and board, so your dorm and your meals on campus. Those are the hard costs because that's what you're gonna get a bill for. That's what the university will say, okay, you're a student, this is what your bill will be. And then there are soft costs. The soft costs, I call them soft because you can play with them. It'll depend on how you budget. Books and supplies, depending on the classes you're taking, the number of classes you're taking, books and supplies will vary. Transportation, we use transportation to account for, example, a student that plans to live at home. Say the student's living in LA and they're going to be commuting to Long Beach. So we want you to think about how you're going to get to campus. Are you going to take public transportation? Or are you going to be driving your car? So you will want to think of parking. How much is parking going to cost? How much is gas going to cost? living expenses. So even if you're not living at on campus, you may have other costs at home. Maybe your parents will say, hey, you're in college, maybe you have a job, and we want you to help out with the light bill. You know, if that is the case, then you want to account for those things. You want to start budgeting. And that's the purpose of the cost of attendance. It even includes miscellaneous expenses. So miscellaneous expenses, school supplies, if you're living on campus, your shampoo, you know, everything. We try to think of everything, and we try to come up with this budget to help students kind of determine how much money am I going to be needing, or how much money do I want to budget for, depending on where I'm going to be living. Okay. And then we have the expected family contribution. So the expected family contribution is what the Department of Education calls the number that is determined on your FAFSA, or when you submit your FAFSA or your DREAM application. So down here in the expected family contribution, it's kind of blurry, but when you submit a FAFSA, you get a confirmation page, and it tells you, congratulations, we have your application. And then towards the bottom, it tells you what your estimated expected family contribution is. And so that doesn't mean that that's the amount of money that you're paying out of pocket. It doesn't mean that that's how much we're expecting your parents to contribute on top of the financial aid that you're getting. That just helps the school determine, okay, say we have Sammy the Slug. He's applying to CSU Long Beach, and you know he has an expected family contribution of $5,000. That doesn't mean that Sammy's going to be paying $5,000 out of pocket. All that means is, okay, this is what the FAFSA determined. Let's go ahead and use that to determine what type of financial aid Sammy qualifies for. Does he qualify for grants? Does he qualify for loans only? Did he file his FAFSA on time? And so all of those things combined will help us understand what type of financial aid you qualify and give you a financial aid package. And the expected family contribution is ultimately determined by all of the information that is reported on your FAFSA application. So your income, your parents' income, the asset information, and the household size. There's a lot of other factors that the FAFSA takes into consideration, such as the state that you live in, your parents' ages. There's a lot of things. But the most important thing that you need to remember is that you want to provide as accurate income information on the application, because that plays the biggest role in determining your financial aid eligibility.
Okay, Paula, we have a couple of questions.
Sure.
So someone asked, who exactly comes up with their budget? I'm assuming who grants the financial aid package and what comprises that. I know you touched on it a little bit.
So the budget, if you're referring to the cost of attendance, then the school comes up with that. So for example, at CSU Long Beach, the chancellor's office, there's surveys that are done on I can't remember how many years they do surveys, and they ask students, how much did you spend on housing? How much did you spend on books? And then they use that information from the school, and then also information that's reported by the state to determine what it'll cost the student to attend. And then tuition and fees are determined per school. And then your financial aid is determined by us, the financial aid office. So we get your FAFSA application, your financial aid application. We look at your expected family contribution, and then we have what we call a magic formula. It's cost of attendance minus expected family contribution equals your need. And that's the last term that I'll talk about in a moment. But the need is then what helps us determine, okay, these many grants, these many loans based on your need. But yeah. That answers your question?
Yes, and then we have another one. So based on the FAFSA, this question is more of like on the FAFSA itself, but do you have to provide 401k information?
No. So if your parents have a 401k, that is excluded from asset information. The only time you have to report 401k is if your parents withdraw money early. So sometimes we have families who maybe have, unexpected expenses. Maybe they have a lot of credit card debt and they withdraw money from the retirement account to pay for that debt. If that is the case, you would have to report it. If you have a case where your parent withdraws money from their 401k, say someone in your family got sick and they withdrew money because they needed to pay for those medical expenses. You have to report it on your FAFSA, but you can always let us know, hey, this is the money that we had to spend. This money doesn't even exist anymore. This money was spent on medical bills. So depending on your situation, you can always talk to us, and we can help you determine get a more accurate reflection of your financial aid eligibility. But those are the only times when they withdraw money early. If it's still in the retirement account, don't report it.
And then last question that came up is for the FAFSA itself, who should be counted in the family size?
Your household size is number one, everyone that lives in the house. Okay, so first, you'll want to think, okay, I live with my mom, my dad, my siblings, and myself. Okay, that I have 2 siblings, and you say, okay, we have 5 people, your immediate family. And then you'll say, okay, my uncle's also living here, my grandma's also living here. And then the next thing you want to ask yourself, do your parents provide more than 50% of that individual support? So yeah, my siblings are underage, so my parents provide all of their support, so I will include them. My uncle, he works and he pays for his own bills, so I'm not going to report him in the household. My grandma doesn't have any income. My parents pay for all of her expenses, and she lives with us, so I'm going to report it. So you'd have a household of 6 in that case. So that's how you want to think about it. Who lives in the household, and who do your parents support? Who do your parents pay for more than 50% of their expenses? And when we say 50%, are your parents paying for the rent, or the majority of the rent? Are the parents paying for their food, their cell phone, their clothing? And if that is the case, then that individual is considered a dependent of your parent, and your parent should report it, or you should report in the household type. Keep in mind that that is different than dependence on the taxes. So sometimes students will say, oh, my grandma just moved in. My mom's going to be providing more than 50% of her support, but my mom didn't claim her on the taxes last year. That's okay. We're not looking to see, or we're not looking to confirm that your mom or your dad claimed them on the taxes. Tax exemptions and household dependence are 2 different things. Okay, so the only thing, do they live with you? Do your parents pay for more than 50% of their expenses?
Okay, I'll let you continue.
Okay.
We have a couple more questions, but I'll hold those to the end.
Okay. All right. So now I'm going to go into the last term, which is financial aid needs. So need is cost of attendance minus expected family contribution. As we said earlier, need is the difference between what it costs to attend the school and what your family can contribute to your education. I know it sounds confusing because I just said that that's not what your parents are paying, but again, it's just the formula that helps us determine what type of financial aid you qualify for. That doesn't mean that you should go and try to do the math yourself and try to figure it out, because awards vary per school and it's more complicated than that. You'll want to talk to a financial aid advisor to determine what your financial aid eligibility will be. This is just to give you an idea of how we determine needs to then determine what type of financial. So once we know that you have need, we'll say, okay, well, this student may qualify for this grant. This student qualifies for subsidized loans, which I'll get into in a moment, or federal work study. And if you don't have need, so for example, we have families that their expected family contribution could be higher than what it costs to attend the university. So let's say we have a student who's a commuter, and their cost of attendance to attend CSULB is $19,966. After they fill out the FAFSA, they find out that their expected family contribution is $22,000. So cost of attendance minus their expected family contribution, that individual does not have need. So more than likely, that is a student that would only qualify for student loans. And even though you qualify for student loans only, you're still encouraged to apply for scholarships. You're still encouraged to ask questions. All right. Okay. So what are the different types of financial aid? The first ones we want to talk about are the free money. So that is what grants are. And that's a question that a lot of students have. Sometimes you get your financial aid offer and you look at it, and it's, a lot of us are looking at that financial aid offer for the very first time. and we see Cal Grant, we see Pell Grant, we see State University Grant, and we don't know what that means. If you see grants, that's a good thing. That's free money. That's money that you do not have to pay back. Your financial aid application determined that you had sufficient need, and therefore you qualify for different sources of funding. If you're attending UC, you could probably qualify for the Blue and Gold program, and a lot of those programs, the State University Grant, the Cal Grant, and the Blue and Gold program, ensure that you go to school without having to pay for tuition. These grants a lot of the times will pay for your tuition, and then you just have to worry about maybe fees or your books and supplies. And if you have other grants, then you use those grants to pay for those other expenses. What are scholarships? Scholarships are free money, and scholarships are different. That's another misconception that sometimes students have. Oh, I didn't have the best GPA, so I'm not going to get any scholarships. That's not necessarily true. There are scholarships that do look at merit. There's scholarships that do have GPA requirements, and there's scholarships that don't. There's scholarships that say, hey, did you do a lot of community service? We have a scholarship for you. Hey, are you interested in this field? Well, we may have a scholarship for you. So do your research, check with the school, check with your advisors, check with your college, your high school counselors. We all have information on scholarships, and we want you to apply for scholarships. I tell students that the summer before college is the time to take advantage. You're not in school, you're getting ready for college, start applying. It's never too early to apply. Scholarships will tell you, hey, we're looking for high school seniors, we're looking for first year. Look at the requirements and apply for those scholarships. And sometimes I tell students, hey, if you have 4 out of 5 requirements, give it a try. What if no one else applies? Like, for example, at CSUOB, we have school scholarships. And a lot of the times we get certain scholarships that students don't apply for. So we're looking for students, or we're trying to spread the word and say, hey, do you know a student that is in this program? They may qualify. So if you meet the majority of the requirements, the worst thing that's going to happen is they say no. But apply. You don't lose anything with applying, because the more scholarships you apply for, the more money that you have to pay for your educational expenses. If you're borrowing a loan and because maybe you don't have anything else up front, and you apply for scholarships throughout the year, you can use that scholarship money to reimburse yourself for tuition, to pay off your loans. And that's something that some students will do. Some students will say, well, I'll take the loan up front, but I'm going to apply for scholarships once I get that money, or I'm going to work over the summer. Once I get that money, I'll pay back my loan. All right. Okay.
Sorry, we do have a couple of scholarship questions.
Sure.
So we have, so can you start saving, or can you start having scholarships before junior and senior year? So can you apply for them early, I'm assuming?
There's scholarships out there that will allow you to apply early. The scholarship will tell you. Most scholarships will tell you, hey, we're looking for high school seniors only, or high school juniors. So just look at the high school requirement. And if they don't have a requirement, email whoever is listed on there and ask them, can I apply? I know there are students that maybe, depending like the high school or the community that they're living in, if they have different scholarships out there, and if they qualify, you can start saving up early on.
And then our second question is, when you get a scholarship, do they see what you spend the money on? Is it strictly for school? Yeah, so that's pretty much the question.
Okay, so you want to try to use your money for school, but no, we don't ask for receipts. We don't say, hey, you got all this money, where'd you spend it on? We'll talk about that towards the end, but one thing that I emphasize to students is whatever money you're getting, it's meant to be for school. So let's say you have a very successful year. Maybe your freshman year, you're right out of high school, you're very eager, and you do really well in all of your classes, and so you have a ton of financial aid and scholarships. And then the following year, your parents have an increase in income. The following year, you don't get as much financial aid. You get maybe one grant and mostly loans, and you don't have as many scholarships. So what happens then? Now your parents have to pay more money out of pocket, or maybe you have to pay more money out of pocket. because you didn't save your money or you didn't spend it wisely. So save your money, use it for school expenses. We're not going to ask for receipts, but at the end of the day, it's on you. It's going to be your responsibility to manage that money. And that is an issue that we have. Sometimes we have students that it's the very first time. We have students that may be getting a very, large refund at the end of or at the beginning of the semester, and they're like, oh, hey, I've never seen this much money and I want to spend it. I need this, I need that. Really think about what your needs are and think about the future. Something that we say in our office is you want to live like a student today so that tomorrow you can live like a professional. You don't want to graduate from college and have a ton of debt, have a ton of loans that you borrowed because you didn't save money or you didn't use your scholarship money effectively. And then at the end of it, you graduate. And the moment you graduate, you're going to have to use the majority of your paycheck to pay for bills. So keep that in mind.
And then we have, how do you know if you qualify for need-based scholarships?
So a lot of the times when scholarships are looking for need-based, they're going to ask for your expected family contribution, or they'll ask the school to confirm. So I get some scholarship forms from students that will ask me to tell them how much scholarships the student, how many grants the student is receiving and how many loans. And so we'll report that information to them, or they may ask you for your expected family contribution. You'll report that to them and they will decide if you have need. Scholarships vary because this is private money. This is money that is coming from private donors or separate organizations. So they make their rules on who they give their money to.
And then is there a limit on the number of scholarships you can have?
There's a limit to the total financial aid you can receive, and ultimately that limits scholarships. So I'm going back to the slide with the cost of attendance. So for example, if you're a student that is commuting, that's the one with the lowest budget. That's $19,966, I think. You can receive, if you're a commuter, that's the maximum you can receive in financial aid and scholarship. So a lot of the times, what will happen is we'll have students that apply, get grants, get loans, and then start applying for scholarships. When you exceed the $19,966 budget, what we do is we automatically start paying off your loans for you. Scholarship money comes in, we'll reduce your loan and pay it with your scholarship money. And sometimes we get students that say, hey, wait a minute, I applied for that scholarship because I need that money. I was going to use that money to apply for, to pay for a computer. Maybe, I had a computer, it broke, and I need a new computer. That's why I applied for a scholarship. Let us know, and we can go ahead and increase your budget if you have the proper paperwork. But you want to keep track of your cost of attendance because that's what determines the maximum financial aid you can receive, grants, loans, and scholarships.
And then we have another question. So once I'm given financial aid or let's say scholarship money, am I able to decide how to use that money? For example, if I don't want to spend that money on soft expenses, can I only use it for tuition and room and board? How can I determine how to spend that money?
Mm-hmm. So what you'll want to do is look at your financial aid packet and then look at how much it'll cost, for your tuition and fees. Then accept only the money that you need. So for example, if you get a financial aid package that includes grants and loans, you'll definitely want to accept the grants, even if the grants exceed the amount of tuition. Why? Because that money is going to get sent to you, and that's free money. That's free money that is given to you. If you don't want to, let's say your parents are going to pay for your books. Maybe they said, hey, we want you to keep your money. We're going to pay for your books. Save it. If you don't have any other expenses or bills due to the university, save that money. You can absolutely put that money in a savings account, and you do not have to report it in your next year's FAFSA as a savings. Any money that is in your savings, your checking account that is coming from financial aid, you don't have to report it. So it's not like we're going to say, hey, we gave you a ton of money, now report it. No. Don't be afraid to save it and only accept what you need. So if you know that you have more than enough money in grants and you don't have any other expenses to pay for, then you don't need loans. But if you are going to be living off campus, say you're planning on getting an apartment with your friends, then you want to accept sufficient financial aid to pay for all of your bills. You'll want to create a budget that includes your tuition, your books, your rent, your meals, and you want to, in those cases, what I tell students is you want to make sure that you have enough financial aid. Say you, at the beginning, you're like, well, I'm going to try to not take loans and I'm going to try my very hardest to just use my free money and budget as well as I can. You could do that. And, you know, at some point you run into any issues, your loans will always be there. So don't feel pressured to accept money that you don't know if you're going to need upfront. You can always accept it later.
Okay, I'll hold the rest of the questions for later.
Okay. What are the different types of financial aid with work study now? So a lot of students will be offered work study. Work study for many schools is reserved for the students that have the highest need. So that means that they have a very low expected family contribution, and we're going to go ahead and allow them to use work study. So work study is not free money in a sense because you do have to work for it, but it's also not a loan, okay? And so with work study, when you accept your financial aid, there's a certain date when we disperse financial aid. Work study does not. So if you accept it and you see, you're like, hey, wait a minute, my refund is not reflecting my work study, that's because you have to go out and apply for a job. So with work study, you do submit an application. The financial aid office does not find a job for you. It's your responsibility to go out and submit an application, go to the interview, and get hired. If you get hired, then you'll start earning your money, whether it's on a weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly basis, depending on the department. That's something you'll want to ask them, how often the students get paid. Work study jobs are really great because they're very flexible. A lot of the times the work study jobs are on campus, and so the departments will work around your school schedule, and they'll let you work, you know, between or after class. And the best thing about these is that they're tax exempt, so you're not taxed as heavily as you are with a regular job. And just like the financial aid refunds that you get, that you have in your cash and savings, there's a certain section on the FAFSA where you can report your work study earnings so that they're not counted in the expected family contribution calculation, okay? So if you get work study, it is a good opportunity for you to have extra sources of money. Keep in mind that there are schools, for example, at CSU Long Beach, if we are offering you work study and you don't use it your first year, you lose it for future years. Very rarely do we reoffer it. So make sure that you figure out, you know, your first year if you're absolutely not going to need it, or you know, you ask questions to your financial aid office about it. Yeah, that's really what work study is. You get paid you get a regular paycheck, you cash it, and then you can use it for food, you can use it for your rent, whatever expenses you have.
Okay,
and for this one, we don't ask for receipts either.
And we have a question. Do you get more money through work study or through a regular job?
It depends. So work study, more than likely, you're probably going to be getting more money through a regular job because work study has a limit. And so most of the time, we'll say, for example, at CSU Long Beach, I think the maximum is $3,500. It'll vary at schools. And once you reach that limit, that's it. You can't get paid any more than $3,500 for the year. And your employer and you need to work that out to make sure that you are working specific amount of hours to not exceed that amount. And then there are other schools where they don't have enough, or they have more work study money. And if you reach your limit, you can go in and say, hey, is there a possibility to increase it? And there's some schools that may be able to increase it. But it's important that you track it and that you ask ahead of time. Because if you max out, then, you know, your department may get upset because they're gonna be like, hey, you didn't tell me, and now you can't keep working unless they want to pay you out of their budget. So ask those questions, talk to your employer, and make sure that you're tracking those hours. Okay. All right, and federal loans. So subsidized and unsubsidized loans. Subsidized, Subsidized means that the government is paying the interest on those loans while you're in school. Unsubsidized means that you're accumulating interest. So the way to remember it is S comes before U. S is good. It's interest-free while you're in school. Unsubsidized, you're accumulating interest. So the moment you borrow your loan, this upcoming year, the interest rate is going to be at 2.73%. So it is lower than other years, but it is still money that you have to pay back. This is money that you get while you're in school to help you fund your education. But after you graduate, you have to pay these loans back. The recommendation that I give to students is if you absolutely have to borrow an unsubsidized loan, consider making payments towards the interest while you're in school, because that'll save you money long term. Subsidized loans, if you borrow them and you happen to work over the summer or you happen to get a scholarship, you pay it back while you're in school. You're never going to pay any interest on that loan. You're only going to pay what you borrowed. So if I borrowed $3,000 in a subsidized loan, and then the next summer I get a job, I save enough money, I can pay it off, never pay any interest on it. So there's some tips on those loans, but it's important to remember that this is money that you're gonna have to pay back 6 months after you graduate, or if at any time your enrollment falls below half time. So check with your school to determine what is half time for your school. So we have students that sometimes their last year, their senior year, they maybe have one last class that they need to take. They take one class or maybe a class and another 2-unit course, and then they end up with 5 units. If the minimum requirement is 6 units to be considered half time, that student is considered as no longer enrolled half time, and they start using up their grace period. The grace period is the 6 months that the lenders give you to pay before you start paying off your loan. And so that student, say at the beginning of spring, they enrolled in 5 units. That student by June is going to start making a payment. So right after graduation, versus a student who graduates in June and maintained at least 6 units the entire academic year. In June, when they're getting ready to graduate, they get in 6 months to find a job, get settled, and then pay their loan. So it's very important that you keep in mind that units are important. Units do matter. The number of classes that you're taking do matter, not only for loans, but for grants. I forgot to mention that in the grant section, but depending on the number of units that you're taking, if you're not enrolled in school full time, your grants may get reduced. And so those questions are more, more personal questions, I guess, because it'll depend on your specific needs as a student. And so talk to a financial aid advisor before you make a decision on how many units you're going to end up taking. Why? Because a lot of our students will run into issues halfway through the semester where they realize, hey, what happened to my Pell Grant? I was expecting $3,000 and I only got $1,500. And so by then, most classes are filled up by the time they realize it, and then they can't enroll in more classes and they don't end up with all of their financial aid. So it can be a whole mess. You want to make sure you talk to someone, figure out what your financial aid will be based on your unit, okay? And there are, one thing that I do want to, emphasize is that student loans are not all that scary, especially federal student loans. They do help in ways. They help you build credit. They also help you at the end when you're getting ready to start paying off your loans. There's very flexible repayment plans. There's loan forgiveness plans. If you're planning on pursuing a career in public service and you decide to go to school and then you decide to go to grad school, and you accumulate more loans, there's public service loan forgiveness programs that will forgive your debt after 10 years. So there's different options for you out there. So know that it's not the end of the world if you end up having to borrow a loan. The important thing is that you have the resources to fund your education. And another thing you want to keep in mind is the last thing you want to do is not borrow loans because you don't want to, you're trying to live on a very strict budget and then you're stressing out or you're skipping out on meals. Don't do that. As a student, it's important that you focus on school and that you try to make sure that you have those resources so that you don't have to stress about that, because it's one of the worst things one of the worst experiences in college, to have to be stressing out about money and skipping a meal. Okay. Um, were there any questions on loans?
So not on loans, but we do have other questions just on general FAFSA as well as independent questions,
Okay.
financial aid specific for private schools. So
Okay.
wait till the end, or I
Yep.
can start asking some now.
Yeah, we can do maybe a couple, and then we can do some at the end, so we can split
Okay,
them.
so let me see. So, will having an income during school lower your need eligibility?
So if you do, so keep in mind that if when you're applying for financial aid, you are filling out your telling us how much money you have, and as a student, your responsibility is to pay for school. So if you do have a job, the Department of Education is going to say, well, the student has a job, they should be saving money for financial aid for school, so their financial aid may decrease. But there's another thing to keep in mind. The information that you're reporting on FAFSA is 2 years old. So if, for example, I have a job this year, I don't have to report that for another 2 years. So just keep that in mind that it is you're reporting old data, and a lot of the times, if you find the job, maybe your sophomore year, you don't even end up seeing an impact until your senior year, and you have time to plan for that. So those are meetings, or those are counselor appointments that we have with students that say, hey, I'm working this year. What should I do? And then we'll say, okay, well, it's not, you don't have to report it until this year. And so by then you'll know, and you'll be prepared. So you'll have extra money in the event that your financial aid gets reduced.
And then, could you still be your parents' dependent at 18 or older if you're working but still studying?
Yes. You are considered your parents' dependent until you are 24 years or older. So we get that a lot. I'm 18, I moved out, I'm working, I'm paying for my bills. My parents don't even give me money. Unfortunately, for financial aid, the Department of Education has said that your parents are the primary responsible party for funding your education. So you have to continue reporting their information until the age of 24, or unless you get married, you're a veteran. There's other questions that the FAFSA will ask to determine your dependency status. However, if you are a student that has extenuating circumstances at home where you know that maybe your parents are unreliable, you can't provide their information because your relationship with them is inconsistent, or there's special circumstances, talk to us. That's a counselor appointment where we can talk and determine what the best route is for you. Okay. So just keep that in mind, that if it's something that it's hard for you to get, if it's information that is hard for you to get, you'll want to talk to us so we can help you determine how to fill out your application. And there are options. So do not fill out an application because you fear that you won't be able to get their information, or that you won't get any financial aid.
And then if you're an independent student, would you be able to skip certain sections of the FAFSA application?
Yes. So when you're filling out the application, it's first going to ask for your very basic information. Then it'll ask for your income. Then it'll ask you questions to determine your dependency status. If the FAFSA determines that you're independent, it'll automatically skip all of the parent income information. It'll tell you, do you want to submit it? There's no purpose. If you're independent, there's no purpose because we're not going to look at it at all. Okay. And sometimes we have independent students who say, I don't have any income, so I need to report my parents' information because I don't have any income and I'm not really independent. If you're 24, you're independent. If you don't have any income, that's okay. Again, fill out your FAFSA as accurately as possible. Tell us you don't have any income, and that's okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. No problem. Let's talk about Cal Grant. So Cal Grant is it's one of the biggest sources of financial aid for our students in California. This is money that is coming from the state of California, and you can use it if you're planning on attending a UC, a CSU, even community college. And then there are some independent, private, and technical schools that do get where you can use your Cal Grant. I recommend if you're planning on going to community college to try and save your Cal Grant for your 4 year or for when you transfer. because if you do use Cal Grant does have a limit. Oftentimes that limit is 4 full years of school, or for transfer students, it could be up to 2 years. So if you use your money in community college where it's cheaper, where tuition is cheaper, you might end up losing out on very essential money when you transfer to your next school. So try to save that money. But if you are starting at a CSU or a UC right off the bat as a freshman, then this is money that is going to help you pay for your tuition. You do have to submit a GPA verification form. The GPA will determine what type of Cal Grant you are eligible to receive, as well as your family's overall income. Those two things are used to determine your Cal Grant. And your very first year, so if you're a senior in high school today, then you should have submitted your Cal Grant GPA verification by March 2nd. Most high schools do this electronically, and they do this automatically for you. I still tell students, double check with your counselor and say, hey, did I get with your high school counselor and make sure that your GPA verification was submitted. Errors do happen, and what I say to students, hey, it's my financial aid, so I want to make sure that my information is there, that I have everything good to go. So double check. And March 2nd is really only important for that first year. Once you get it your first year, you kind of get grandfathered in. And so you get, if you have the same eligibility the following year and you happen to miss the March 2nd deadline, if you're still eligible for Cal Grant, you will still get it. But I don't want to encourage that at all. Keep them just March 2nd, keep that date in mind and just fill out your FAFSA before that. And don't even wait until March 2nd, because sometimes computer issues happen. We've had years where the FAFSA is, they have technical issues. So many students are submitting on the very last day, and then you submit it and you think that it went through, but it didn't. And then you end up with the FAFSA submitted on March 3rd. Another important reminder is that the deadline is not 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. It's East Coast time. So you really want to try to make sure that your application is submitted by 9:59 or 10 p.m. Okay, so don't wait until the last day. Don't put that stress. Don't deal with that stress. All right. So
someone had a question on Cal Grant. They did ask, does having a higher GPA result in an increased or decreased amount of Cal Grant?
The Cal Grant amount, depending on which one you get, will vary depending on if you get let me hold that to the next slide because I'll have a breakdown. If you want to check on your Cal Grant eligibility, you want to make sure that you create an account on your Web Grants portal. So once your GPA verification is submitted, this is going to be your best friend to check to make sure that you have Cal Grant eligibility. If you're a student that that doesn't have a Cal Grant eligibility, you may still get considered for another grant, which is the middle class scholarship, and you will use your Web Grants portal to check on that as well. So this is something where you want to create an account and you want to save it. So just like your FAFSA username and password, you want to write it down and you want to keep it in a safe place. Keep it on your notes on your phone, if you're uploading to the cloud, and you'll be able to retrieve that information, or in a notebook at home. Save it, because it's going to be a hassle to get that information. Okay, this is also where you're going to confirm your school of attendance. So when you're first applying for college, you tend to list all of the schools you want on your FAFSA application. So you can list up 10 schools. You list all those schools, and so the Cal Grant may not know who to give the money to. They're like, okay, this student's eligible for Cal Grant, and they tend to give it to the first school that you list on there. So say my dream school is Harvard, and I list let's think of an in-state school. My dream school is UCLA, and I apply for UCLA, but I don't get into UCLA. I end up getting into UC Santa Barbara. UCLA, your Web Grants portal is going to reflect UCLA as your school because that's the first school you listed. But you end up going to UC Santa Barbara, you want to make sure that your school on there is reflected correctly. Otherwise, Santa Barbara is not going to get your name on their roster. They'll know you're a student there. They'll give you a financial aid offer based on what you qualify there, but your Cal Grant may be missing because you're not on their roster. So double check the school and make sure that you update your school of attendance. There are other circumstances or there's other things that they may want you to double check, such as your high school graduation date. So sometimes we have students that say, hey, I know I'm getting Cal Grant. I got an email saying I'm going to get Cal Grant, but I don't see it reflected. And then I'll check on my end and I'll say, because you haven't reported your high school graduation date. There's little things that they may want you to double check. So check your web grants portal. Check it at least once a week until you see Cal Grant on your financial aid offer. Okay, if you know you're going to get it, check it until you see it on your financial aid offer. And if you know everything is good on the portal and you don't see it on your financial aid offer with your school, then let one of the financial aid counselors know so that we can ensure that it is added to your financial aid package. And don't freak out if you don't see it at the very beginning. A lot of the times, the Cal Grant isn't reported until the middle of the summer. We try to award it as early as possible for students that have everything good to go, but some students don't see it on their financial aid offer until way later. But keep track of it. Okay, so with GPA, this is the difference on the grant that you're gonna get, okay? So there's two main types of Cal Grants, but overall there's three. There's Cal Grant A, there's Cal Grant B, and there's Cal Grant C. Cal Grant C is reserved for students that are going to vocational school. And so if you're going to a vocational school, you may be getting a Cal Grant C there. And again, Cal Grant is up to the amount of your tuition. Cal Grant A requires a GPA of a 3.0. It is for students that have or that fall into the higher income ceiling, and the maximum you can get depends on the tuition. So at a CSU, tuition is about $5,742. So your Cal Grant A will be equivalent to that. At a UC, tuition is about $12,570. So your Cal Grant is equivalent to that. Now, I get a lot of students that will say, hey, I'm getting way more money at a UC than at a CSU. It's not that you're getting way more money, because this is paying for your tuition. So at the end of the day, it's the same thing. As long as it pays for your tuition, it's just taking care of the tuition amount. Tuition is higher at a UC, so the amount is higher for Cal Grant. Cal Grant B requires that you have a minimum GPA of a 2.0, and it is for students that have lower income. One thing to keep in mind with Cal Grant B, and I have a lot of students that will freak out when they see Cal Grant B on their portal, because they say, hey, Cal Grant A is giving me $5,742, but Cal Grant B is only giving me $1,672. That's because your very first year of school, you only get the stipend, which is $1,672. But most schools will pay the difference. So for example, if you're a student at a CSU, you will see the state university grant for $5,742 and the stipend for $1,672. So you'll see both awards. At the end of the day, it's still paying for your tuition and you're getting extra money. So all in all, Cal Grant B is the better award in the long run. But this is the grant that is reserved for students that have lower income. We do have students that will qualify for both Cal Grant A and Cal Grant B. And so if you are lower income, you're gonna get the Cal Grant B. And so we'll have students say, hey, I want the Cal Grant A because it's giving me more money. In the long run, Cal Grant B is we're gonna give you the award that is going to benefit you the most long run. But if a student absolutely says, I do not want Cal Grant B, I do for sure want my Cal Grant A my first year, you can always talk to us and we can submit that request to the state for you.
Okay. And then we have a question with Cal Grants, how do they work at private schools?
So you'll have to check to see if that school is eligible to receive Cal Grant. Not all private schools are eligible to receive this payment from the state. So check with that school individually to see if you're eligible.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. So what happens after you apply for financial aid? After you apply for financial aid, you will get either, and you're admitted to the school or you're an applicant, the school will either give you an official financial aid offer or a preliminary offer. If you get an official financial aid offer, most schools will have a login system where you'll be able to create your account. It's where you're going to sign up for classes. You're going to be able to see your bill, your student portal. That is where you'll be able to accept any awards that are given to you if it's official. If it's preliminary or estimated, that means that there's something preventing us from being able to give you an official offer. That means that you were probably selected for verification and that we need more information from you. Again, do not freak out. If you are selected for verification, a lot of students tend to think I did something wrong and they freak out, they get scared, and some students don't want to submit their financial aid information. Okay, so I want to mention two very important things. If you're selected for verification, check with the office, check your to-do list to see what you need, check your email, and try to submit that paperwork as soon as possible. Do not submit paperwork because you are afraid your parents are going to get in trouble, or maybe you have a weird situation going on at home, or maybe your parents are getting paid cash. There's several different issues that sometimes the students have, and they don't want to submit their paperwork because they think that we are going to report that information to someone. We are not the IRS. I cannot force you to file taxes. I cannot force your parents to file taxes. I can give you advice and I can counsel you on what is the best way and what paperwork we need. If your parents file their taxes incorrectly, and that happens, some parents get misadvised and they file their taxes incorrectly, we'll catch it during verification and we'll let you know, hey, your parents' tax filing status is not matching their marital status. What's going on? Let us know, be honest, tell us what's going on, and we will try to help you find the best alternative, and we'll tell you what the next steps are. But again, we cannot force you to do anything that you or your parents don't want to do or are not comfortable doing. We are also not Department of Homeland Security. We do not report any information to any other department. That information stays within our office, and it is simply used to determine your financial aid eligibility. That is all that information is for. So if you have a special circumstance, let us know. Make an appointment with a financial aid counselor, talk to us, and my job, my colleagues' jobs are to try to find solutions for you. We are not here to add barriers. We are not your enemy, we are your friend, and we want to make sure that you get a financial aid offer. So please talk to us if you're selected for verification and you get scared, talk to us. Okay, and again, verification, all that it is we need to collect paperwork to verify that the information on the application is correct. So let me give you some examples. We may need to verify your household size. If we need to verify your household size, all you need to do is list everyone who you initially thought of that was a part of your household, or if maybe you filled out your application and you were missing someone, this is a great opportunity to now add them. If we have a question, we'll say, hey, you first said you had 6 people, now you said you have 7. Who is it, or what happened? Sometimes students leave themselves out and they'll say, oh, I included everyone else except for me. I didn't think of me. That's okay. Whatever the issue is, just put it down on the paperwork. Or we may need to verify your parents' income information. We'll need a copy of their tax return. Maybe one of your parents doesn't file taxes. We'll need to verify that they didn't file taxes with the IRS, and we'll request a letter from the IRS. So those are the most common things that we need from verification. It's all information that you already use to fill out your application. And a lot of the things can be resolved with you talking to us and giving us a signed statement. Okay?
And then we had a question about verification. When would a student be notified that they were selected for verification, and where would they see this information?
The very first place where you'll see it is at the end of your FAFSA application. In that confirmation page where you see your expected family contribution, there's a comment section where it'll tell you your school may ask you for information. So if you see that comment, more than likely, we are going to ask you for additional information. The next earliest date will be the school, right after we start sending out financial aid offers. So most schools will send that request around March or April. Okay, we tend to send them early on, and then we tend to give you a few months. So for example, at CSU Long Beach, we notify you in March, and our deadline is in June. That was a similar timeline that UC Santa Cruz had. And so again, we try to let you know as early as possible and try to give you sufficient time to get your paperwork in. And so that is sometimes something that students are like, oh, well, my deadline isn't until June. I'll wait. Don't wait, because if you have a very complex situation and you submit your paperwork on the very last day, you may be considered late. And if you submit paperwork late, besides missing the March 2nd deadline, the next date is institutional deadline. You want to make sure you submit paperwork on time. So we'll let you know as early as possible. And then if you, for example, start hearing amongst your friends, you apply to the same school and you start hearing from your friends that they got their financial aid offer, but you haven't, call our office and or call the school's office and ask them, hey, why haven't I gotten an offer? So if you feel like it's taking too long, just call. We have a main line. Most schools have a main line where you can call and ask what's going on. But we'll let you know at least by email, more than likely. Any other questions on verification?
Not on verification. I'll hold the rest for the end.
Okay. So let's say you're good to go. You got your financial aid offer. You submitted verification documents if you were selected, and you've now accepted all of your financial aid. You know you have enough financial aid to pay for tuition and fees. The next important date that you want to keep in mind is disbursement date. A lot of students freak out. They get a financial aid offer and they know that the financial aid is enough to pay for tuition and fees, but they see charges on their account. You will always see charges for tuition and fees on your account. Just because you're a financial aid recipient doesn't mean that you're never going to see charges. You'll always see charges for your tuition and fees. If you see them, don't freak out. If you have accepted enough financial aid, you don't have to make a payment. If you don't have enough financial aid to pay for your charges, then you'll want to know when the deadline is to pay for your fees. Some schools will drop you from your classes if you don't pay your fees on time. Some schools will put holds on your account. It varies from school to school. So check in with the school and know what your bill is and what your financial aid is ahead of time. Then we will disperse most schools. The earliest that they're allowed to disperse financial aid is 10 days. All schools, that's the earliest. And most schools will follow that 10-day rule. So 10 days before school starts, the school will pay your financial aid out. First, we go ahead and pay your bill on your account. So those are the hard costs. So tuition and fees and room and board. If there's money that is left over, then that money is sent to you. Most schools have e-refund or getting a check by mail. If the school has e-refund, sign up for e-refund, because if you don't sign up for e-refund and you were hoping to use that money to pay for your books, you're probably not going to see that money for a few weeks, or maybe 3 or 4 weeks into the semester. So sign up for e-refund so you can get your money early and pay for your books early. But yeah, we automatically do that for you if you have excess money. Okay. Okay. Award letter review. So this is what your award letter looks a lot of the time. For the CSU, this is what the student portal will look like, and then we have an example of an offer from a UC. So they are different, but what you want to pay attention is the type of awards that you're getting. Again, if you see grant, that is free money. If you see loan, then that is money that you have to pay back. So your responsibility once you get your offer is to go in and accept that offer. You want to review that financial aid offer. You want to see how much money you need, and you want to then start accepting that financial aid. If you decide upfront, I don't want loans, you can choose to decline them, or you can choose to leave them on your award package and go back and accept them later on. If you decline them and later on you realize, hey, I actually do need that money, just let us know. And the award letter is typically sent to students by email. Most schools don't send letters, but there may be some schools that will send you an extra letter to double check, so just as a second form of notifying you of your financial aid offer. So that it's really, really, really important that you check your email. When you start college, email is going to be your best friend. You want to check your email because that's where all of our communications will be sent, whether it's your official financial aid offer or any notifications regarding verification. And your aid packages are final once you get them. So sometimes students will get their financial aid package and then we'll go back to the FAFSA application and make changes. Don't do that, because we're not going to see any new corrections that you make. If you know that you made a mistake let us know, and we will tell you when to make the correction or what paperwork we need, and we'll make the correction for you, okay? But once you get your offer, it's final unless there was a mistake or unless you get selected for verification. And it is possible to get selected for verification after the year has started. If the school happens to find any conflicting information, they can select you for verification throughout the year. So make sure that, again, you provide accurate information on that initial financial aid application. Okay. All right, accepting and declining awards. So the rule is, and this is across the board for all schools, you want to accept all the free money first, scholarships, grants. If you have work study, then that's your next option. And then the last thing you want to accept is borrowed money. So my advice to you is go ahead and sit down, create a budget with your parents, list everything that you're going to be paying for, your hard costs, your books, your soft costs, and how much you're estimating. Look at your financial aid offer, see how much free money you have, see if that's enough to cover those expenses. And if it's not, then ask your parents, will you be able to help me pay these other expenses? If they're not going to be able to help you, then that's when you want to consider federal student loans. And if you accept federal student loans, it's not the end of the world. Once again, you can keep applying for scholarships. If you get scholarships, use that money and pay those federal student loans. Okay. Every school is required to send you a college financing plan. This is a Department of Education rule. And this college financing plan, it used to be called you guys remember what it used to be called? I can't remember. But the college financing plan is essentially there to help you determine, you can print it and then you can compare it with different schools. So for example, if you get admitted to 5 different schools, print out the college financing plan, put them side to side, and then it'll help you see, okay, what school is giving me more money? Where am I going to be paying the least amount of money out of pocket? And what will my total, or what will my net cost be? So up here in the college financing plan, the first thing that you're going to see is the school's estimated cost of attendance. That's what we talked about earlier, the hard cost, the soft cost. Then you'll have scholarships and grants listed. Your financial aid offer will be listed in that middle section. So this college financing plan does the math for you, and then it tells you what your net cost will be. So that includes the money you're paying out of pocket or money that you have to borrow. Okay, so look at the net cost for each school. Where is the net cost the least? And that's the school that is most beneficial financially. And then of course, whatever other criteria you're looking for in a school, you'll want to consider it at that point. But this is what the college financing plan is for. So use it to compare and use it to help determine what your best options are. Okay. And what if I'm selected for verification? This is what we talked about early on. Verification does not mean that you did it wrong. Students are selected at random, and sometimes they're selected because there maybe one year a student reported a household size of 3, and the following year they have a household size of 10. If the Department of Education catches conflicting information from year to year or very different information, then that's when a student will get selected. But most of our students get selected at random. It's a random selection, and this is what we're looking for. Again, the main things that we're looking to verify are household size, number in college, income. Some students will get selected for identity and statement of educational purpose. That is if you're transferring, sometimes most of our transfer students get selected, and that's because you've used financial aid and now you're transferring to another school. So the Department of Education, number 1, wants to verify that it is you, and number 2, that you have an educational purpose, that you're using your financial aid for educational expenses only. Okay, so some reminders that there's free tools out there that'll help you compare the different schools, the costs for different schools. You can use these tools, or you can use the college financing plan, whatever you feel most comfortable. If you have your ETS advisor will help you review these, and even your high school counselors. If you have questions, your whatever schools you're planning on attending can also answer questions. So know that there's a lot of tools out there to help you compare. That's the one thing that you want to make sure that you do. Don't make decisions without knowing what your bill is, because we do get students that will say, well, CSU Long Beach is my dream school and I'm going to go. And next thing you know, we're like a month before school starts, they've already submitted their incentive register, and they never realized that they never got a financial aid package, or that they never submitted a FAFSA, or they didn't know what it cost to go to CSU Long Beach. And now it's kind of too late, because their school options are extremely limited, and now they're freaking out about how they're going to pay for school. So do these comparisons early and know what your bill will be. Know what your out-of-pocket expenses will be. Plan early so that you can stay stress-free throughout the school year. Okay, other tips for you guys are keeping track, or with your soft costs. Like I said, these are costs that you can manage. For books, and a lot of us that have gone to college will tell you there are a lot of ways for you to use your money, save it, use it wisely, and figure out the best option for you, whether it's renting books, borrowing books. There were times where I made friends with other people in the classroom, and we bought one book and we would share it and make copies. Great study groups. You find different options that will help you keep your costs the lowest. If you're someone that does not like to share, likes to have their own thing, then plan accordingly. Maybe you want to buy used books. Maybe you would like PDFs. Sometimes PDFs are cheaper. Buying ebooks could be cheaper. Your supplies. Sometimes there's fairs on campus where they're giving out free blue books. They're giving out Scantrons. Go to these fairs. Go and collect those and have them saved. Because there's, if they're giving out free stuff, why not take it? And talk to different departments on campus to see what resources are available. The EOP program at UC Santa Cruz, for example, had a book lending program. So if they had the book there, you could borrow it from there. Or if they didn't have it and you were an EOP student, they would purchase the book for you. So check to see what programs you're a part of and see what resources they have available for you, because that's what we're here for, to provide resources for you. Skip the last one. Ask for college student discounts. Use your student card. Save your ID card, because you can get tons of discounts in different places. A lot of schools part of your fees are already paying for transportation, so use public transportation if that's possible for you. Carpool to save money on a parking permit, because parking permits can be expensive. And definitely, most importantly, create a budget. Create a budget, because if you're not planning accordingly, then you're going to fail and you're going to end up spending money that you don't have. Okay, and with that goes being a smart spender. A lot of college students, this is when they get into a ton of credit card debt, because they want to do a bunch of stuff with their friends and they're using credit cards. They're not using money that they have. And remember, credit cards, loans, it's money that you don't have, and money that you have to pay back at some point. So if you don't have the resources to pay for them, don't use them. So use your money from your refunds, any excess grant money, any excess scholarship money, and even any excess loan money. Use that money wisely. Save it. There's some people that have graduated from college with a very nice savings account. Instead of graduating with debt, you graduate with a savings account that can help you get on your feet after graduation. So be wise with your money. If you really need school supplies, such as a laptop, then buy it, because that is what the refund is for. You also have, the option of using this money for your transportation. Don't not use your money on things that you do need. Okay. So again, we're not gonna ask you for a receipt. We're not gonna ask for that. So it's on you to just manage that money wisely. All right, and now we're here at questions.
Okay, so we have about 10 questions. So first one, is there an annual income bracket to qualify for Cal Grant A?
Yes, and that's actually something that you guys can Google. You can easily Google Cal Grant income and asset ceilings, and it'll tell you the household size, and then the income brackets that they're looking at. So that's something that you can Google and you can find that information. That's not the same thing though for overall financial aid eligibility. Remember, we look at your expected family contribution, and it can vary. But Cal Grant, yes, you can find that information online on the Cal Grant website.
And then you touched on this a little bit, but does the amount of financial aid depend on which school you're going to?
It can depend on the type of school you're going to. A lot of the times we get students that will come to CSU Long Beach, and then they'll say, their parents will be like, but my kid is a 4.0 kid. They did really well. They have all these things. We don't have any merit money, any merit scholarships, or any merit grants. So your financial aid at a CSU is going to be based on need only. But if you're going to a UC, some UCs or most UCs do have more money, and they will award merit scholarships, and they will have other sources of money. So it depends on the school that you're going to, and that's why at the end of the day, you want to use that college financing plan to compare it. Don't just go off the numbers though, because remember, even though the Cal Grant for a UC is higher than the Cal Grant for a CSU, doesn't mean you're getting more money here. It just means that that's the amount of tuition. Look at the net cost. The net cost is what's going to tell you where you're going to be spending the least out-of-pocket money.
And then we have, can you get more financial aid if you go to a private school? So I think that goes hand in hand with the merit scholarships.
Yeah. Yeah, merit scholarships, and also, but keep in mind that private schools are more expensive. So those are things you want to keep in mind: costs, and whether they have what types of funding they have. So when you're applying for schools, look at the website. Most schools will make that information available on their websites as far as what type of grants or scholarships they award to their students. If they don't have that information and you can't easily find it, make an appointment with the counselor, and they'll talk to you about that.
And then if I attend a community college, which is 2 years free, would I still be getting financial aid money, or would I receive less or more money?
So if you are a student that has high need, you may be eligible for a Pell Grant, and Pell Grant is good for up to 6 full years of school. So if you go to a community college, you can use Pell Grant there. So you can, if you end up paying anything out of pocket, you could use your Cal Grant money, your Pell Grant, and you can still have enough up to 4 years of Pell Grant when you transfer after 2 years. So your overall eligibility will be based on your specific financial aid application. So plan early and make appointments with the counselors early on so that you know what your financial aid eligibility will be in the long run.
Okay, and then what is the Chancellor's Excellence Scholarship? Is this only applicable for UC campuses?
Sorry, say the Chancellor?
Chancellor's Excellence Scholarship. What is it? And is it only for UCs? Or is this available at the Cal States?
It sounds like that is a UC scholarship. At CSU, they have the President's Scholarship, which could be similar, and some of these scholarships are for students that have, it's not administered by the financial aid office. It's a different department that administers it. And so if you get any of these scholarships, some of these scholarships will pay for your tuition and your room and board. So look into them and see what the requirements are. I believe that the one for the CSUs, your high school counselor has to recommend you.
And then, let's see. If I submit financial aid and then get a job while in college, would I still get less money from financial aid? Or does it depend on the type of job I have or how much money I'm making?
Both. So again, remember, it's looking, so just because you earn money, it doesn't automatically mean that your financial aid eligibility is going to reduce, because we're looking at it holistically. We're looking at everything that you put in your financial aid application. And again, you don't report that information until 2 years later. So if you haven't worked in the last 2 years, then your financial aid application for this year or next year is not going to reflect any income. So you have enough time to plan accordingly and save money in the event that your financial aid gets reduced to 30th.
And then, let's see. Are there any ways to get a full ride scholarship that you can recommend?
There are scholarships. I can't think of any because I can't think of any right now. There used to, correct me if I'm wrong, but I had heard that the Gates Millennium Scholarship was no longer available. But the Gates Millennium Scholarship is one of the ones that will provide students with a full year, with a full ride. And I have friends that I know that even got their master's and their PhD programs paid for by the Gates Millennium Scholarship. So look into that one. I'm not too sure about the dates and what changes have happened with that one, but that's one. And there's more out there. I can't think of any. So with those, I recommend that you do your research early on. Start doing your research in your junior year of high school, so that if you do qualify for any of those scholarships, then you don't miss any deadlines and you can use them. Again, some you can use up to your PhD program.
And then we have a question. Do we have to pay back Cal grants? How about paying back other grants, not loans? So loans, I know I have to pay back, but do I have to pay back grants?
You don't have to pay back any grants. The only time you could possibly get a bill for a grant is if, for example, at the beginning of the semester, you were enrolled in 12 units. So we gave you all of your financial aid, and then a week later you drop classes. And then we'll say, hey, you're not enrolled in 12 units, so you can't get 100% of your aid, and now you have a bill. That's the only time. If your enrollment fluctuates throughout the semester, or if you withdraw. If, life happens, so sometimes students have to withdraw entirely. They end up withdrawing from the entire semester, we will ask for the money back. Not for all of it, depending on the day that you withdraw, the amount will differentiate. So at any time, if you're thinking of withdrawing or dropping classes, talk to the financial aid office before you make that decision, so that you know what your bill will be, if any.
And then if I'm a senior in high school this year, what tax year will I need to fill out the FAFSA in the fall?
If you're going to need this 2020. No, I'm sorry, you're gonna need 2019. Sorry, we're in the summer, and so we're doing income appeals, and I'm using both years. But you're gonna need your 2019 tax returns to fill out the 2021, 2022 application.
And then does financial aid follow you through all years of college?
If you submit a financial aid application every year and your financial aid eligibility remains consistent, then you can continue to use it. One thing to keep in mind is that we do look at your grades, and we do look at you making progress towards graduation. So at the end of every semester, we review your grades, we review how many units you completed versus how many units you attempted. And then we limit you based on your program. So make sure that you are aware of how many units are allowed for you to complete your program. Make sure that you are completing the majority, at least 60% of the classes that you're enrolling in. And so by completing, I mean getting a D or better. And if you're getting D's and C's, keep track of your GPA, because if you end up with a GPA below a 2.0 at any point, some schools give you a warning and some schools don't give you a warning. Some schools automatically withdraw you. You do get opportunities to appeal, but make sure that you know what your school's policy is for satisfactory academic progress. That's what it's called.
And then someone asked, where can I check what our costs would be based on the college and salary that we make to get an idea? So I think this is more specific, but.
As far as like what the income is for financial aid eligibility?
More of like, based on the family's income, the college, and then get an idea of how much that they're going to have to pay. So I think they're going to have to look at cost of attendance, their
Yeah,
family.
you're gonna have to look at the school's cost of attendance, and then you want to make sure you have a FAFSA on file so that the school knows what your expected family contribution is. The only one that strictly has the income, like it'll say you need to, for a family of 4 can have an income of $80,000 or less, is Cal Grant. That's the only one where it goes hand in hand, household size and income. But everything else is based on your expected family contribution, looking at your overall financial aid application. So it's not simply based on income. A lot of times students will think, well, how much money do my parents need to make in order for me to get financial aid? That's not how it works. We're looking at your total financial, your total family's financial circumstances.
And then if you're in college and drop a class, will this affect you?
It can. Again, it can affect you long run if you do that every semester, or you do, one semester you have to drop more than one class. You drop classes, it can affect you. It can affect you long run, and it can affect you immediately, such as you had 100% of your aid and you no longer qualify for it, so you have to pay some money back. Before dropping a class, ask questions.
And then does all this information that was provided also apply to graduate school?
Graduate school is different. For graduate school, most graduate schools do not have as much financial aid. Your undergraduate program, because it's your very first degree, there's tons of different financial aid resources. But for graduate schools, some schools will only give you an unsubsidized loan of $20,500. Some schools will have one grant and the loan. Some schools will have a scholarship and the loan. So when you're applying for graduate schools, keep that in mind. And this is where saving your money comes in handy. If you have money left over that you can save it if you're planning on going to grad school, because you're really going to need it for grad school.
And then this one's a little off as well, but can you get financial aid in medical school if you know?
Most medical schools will be loans, and there are some schools that will have fellowships. There are some schools that will have scholarships. So you, again, just like grad school, you have to do your research to see what types of resources the schools have. But I would go into it just keeping in mind that I may have to borrow several loans for graduate school and beyond. And if you're very smart and you plan ahead, you can always apply for scholarships and fellowships.
Okay, so that's all our questions that were throughout the chat box. I don't think I missed any, but if I did, please send your message again in the chat box, but I think that's it.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you guys.
All right. Thank you, Paula, so much. That was very informative. I hope you all had your questions answered, and hopefully are leaving this workshop with a little bit more information and feeling a little bit more comfortable about the prospect of paying for college. We do have our winner for a gift card, and that's going to be Brandon Morales from Compton High School. Congratulations. We'll go ahead and contact you and send you the virtual gift card through email. As a reminder, let me go ahead and share my screen again. Second. Our next workshop will be next week at our regularly scheduled time. So that'll be at 3 o'clock, right? And that is going to be covering the UC personal insight questions. Again, if you're interested in applying to the University of California school next year, this is one that you're really going to want to attend. As always, follow us on our Instagram accounts. They're listed here on. And then remember, if you're not an ETS student, but you would like to join our program with the registration link that you filled out prior to this workshop, hopefully provided your email address or contact information. And if not, you can always email us at ets@cscob.edu. And that way we can get that application out to you. Okay. So thank you again, everyone, for your time. And I hope you all enjoyed the session.